Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of sources, really pull apart the core architecture of an idea, and lay it all out for you.
And today's topic is incredibly ambitious.
I'd say so. We are embarking on a really extensive deep dive into what you might call the structure of human consciousness itself. We're going to be exploring that nexus point where thought, feeling, and energy all meet.
It's more than just ambitious, it's genuinely paradigm shifting. I mean, the material we're covering today really seeks to redefine how we look at human functioning.
How so?
Well, we're moving away from seeing the mind and body purely through, a psychological lens or a biological one. We're entering a system that's defined by information and by vibration.
Right. And this deep dive was specifically requested by Sachin Karnik, who is a presenter and researcher with the Angel Wing, LLC.
And our mission, as I understand it, is very clear.
It is. We need to clearly define the framework the sources call the energetic nexus. And then we're going to spend most of our time dissecting, you could say, its engine room, this highly detailed concept of the tripartite nature of emotion.
And the foundational premise, the big idea you really need to hold in your mind throughout this entire conversation is this. Human experience, and we mean all of it, your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, your desires, is at its core, fundamentally energetic.
Not just a metaphor for energy, but actual energy.
Actual energy. It operates as one single, complex, self-sustaining system where absolutely everything is interconnected through frequency.
Okay, so let's really unpack this idea of human energy flow and information processing as a core reality. Before we can even get to emotion, which you've called the engine room, the movement within the system. We need to define the container, right? The landscape where all of this happens.
Exactly, and that landscape is the energetic nexus.
So what is it?
The energetic nexus is the complete dynamic self-organizing system. Think of it as the connective architecture that links and integrates the 5 primary dimensions of consciousness.
So it's not like mind, body, spirit as separate boxes.
No, not at all. You should think of it less as a collection of separate parts and more as this vast, continuous field. It's electromagnetic, it's informational, it's the network where every single psychological process you have, every thought, every feeling has a direct and, in theory, measurable energetic counterpart.
A thought has a frequency.
A thought is a specific frequency of informational energy, and a feeling is a kinetic wave moving through that field.
Okay, so if the nexus is the network, the whole grid,
Yeah.
then what's the power source? What's the central regulator that anchors the entire thing?
That brings us to what might be the single most important concept in this whole framework. It's called the personal core energy, or PCE for short.
PCE. And what is that?
The PCE is the unifying frequency of consciousness. It's the central axis of coherence. You could think of it as maybe your soul's signature frequency, or like the steady hum of a perfectly tuned engine that keeps all your other frequencies from just flying apart.
That's a powerful idea. But what does this PCE actually feel like in my day-to-day life? How would I know if my PCE is strong or if it's weak?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
Subjectively, you feel a strong PCE as vitality. You feel it as presence, or that really distinct sense of inner radiance. You know that feeling when someone walks into a room and they just seem fully there?
Yeah, completely engaged.
That's a powerful PCE. Psychologically, it's that sense of being that's continuous. It's the inner strength that sustains your continuity and agency. When you feel grounded, when you feel whole, and you feel capable of intentional action. That's your PCE in a high state of coherence.
So it's not just like a gas tank of energy that you can run down. It's about the quality of the signal itself.
The quality of the signal, exactly. Its primary role is integrative. It takes those other 4 dimensions, which can be pretty chaotic sometimes. Cognition, emotion, memory, and desire. And it weaves them together into a coherent whole.
And the sources are pretty clear on this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When your PCE is strengthened, your entire operating system just runs optimally. Transformation, the process of adapting and changing becomes almost effortless.
Like effortless.
Because you have the raw power and the coherence you need to reorganize your own mental and emotional fields. You have the stability to handle the change.
Which means the flip side must be true. When the PCE weakens, the entire system can break down.
Right. That's when the unifying frequency drops or it becomes unstable. And you get symptoms that we all recognize instantly. Fragmentation, where your thoughts and feelings are just scattered all over the place.
Brain fog.
Brain fog, exactly. Or that chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to fix. Or tension, or even full-blown dissociation. The system just lacks the vital intelligence to organize itself, and that creates energetic friction.
So the health of your PCE, its coherence, really dictates the efficiency of your entire operating system.
It's everything.
Okay, so now that we have the container, the nexus, and the core power source, the PCE, let's detail the components that are flowing within this system. We need to define the 4 other dimensions, and specifically their dual roles as psychological functions and as streams of energy.
Right.
Let's start with the filter, the thinking mind, cognition.
So cognition is defined as the interpretive frequency. It's the mind's constant effort to make sense of the universe.
The storyteller.
The storyteller, the map maker. Energetically, it's the process of taking the raw flow of subtle informational waves, just the pure data of your experience, and modulating them into specific, recognizable patterns, things like concepts, language, meaning.
So my brain is acting like a transducer.
An extraordinary transducer. It's converting these ambient informational frequencies into the structured thoughts that you experience. And of course, psychologically, this is our belief system. It's our capacity for rational thought. It's how we structure our internal reality, how we filter and categorize everything.
Okay, so if cognition is the information structure, the blueprint, where does the motivation come from? The actual push to do anything? I'm guessing that's where emotion comes in.
That is exactly where emotion comes in, our main topic today. Emotion is the kinetic frequency of consciousness. This is where that informational structure of cognition gets converted into raw movement and drive.
Kinetic as in movement.
As in pure movement. Energetically, emotion is the movement and the amplitude of vital force, that life energy that ancient traditions called prey or surges or, stagnates through your body-mind field.
And
Psychologically, it's that vivid, palpable experience of effect that instantly colors your perception of everything. Emotion is the critical link. It acts as the interface, converting an abstract cognitive insight, a thought, a realization into felt vitality, or a physical somatic reaction.
So without emotion, a thought is just
Inert data. It has no power. Emotion is what makes it real.
So it sounds like emotion is the vital current that powers action based on the information that cognition provides.
Precisely. It's the engine that converts your mental maps into actual movement.
Okay, next up, let's look at the archive. Memory.
Right. Memory is defined as the stabilizing frequency. Its primary role is to ensure continuity over time.
How does that work energetically?
Energetically, memory is fundamentally the storage of vibrational patterns. When you have an experience, that specific energetic configuration, the thoughts you had, the feelings, your physiological state, it gets imprinted and stored. And that creates a resonance that can persist across time.
And that's what we experience psychologically as.
As the retention and retrieval of experience, this is what shapes our identity. It provides that crucial sense of self-continuity within our energetic field. But there's a really important nuance here.
What's that?
Memory isn't always helpful. It can maintain constrictions. It can create energetic blockages, like knots of trauma or attachment where energy has been frozen in place, preventing the natural flow.
So memory isn't just a stored file on a hard drive, it's a stored chart.
It's a charged field, a living, vibrating pattern. Exactly.
Okay, finally, we have the impetus for change, the dimension that points us forward, desire.
Yes, desire. This is the vector frequency, and I love that term because in physics, a vector has 2 qualities. Magnitude, how strong it is, and direction, where it's going.
And that's what desire is.
That's exactly what desire is.
Yeah.
Energetically, it's the directional motion of your life force. It's the impulse that dictates where your energy is being spent and what you are moving toward. Psychologically, this is our motivation, our longing, our drive, our aspiration.
It's the evolutionary impulse of consciousness itself.
It is. But it's a double-edged sword. It can either dissipate your energy through blind attachment, through craving and external seeking, or it can refine and focus your energy through disciplined aspiration and clear, conscious intent.
What's truly remarkable here is how unified this model feels. All 5 of these dimensions, cognition, which is interpretive, emotion, kinetic, memory, stabilizing, desire, the vector, and the PCE, which is unifying, they're all defined by frequency.
It's a completely vibrational model of the human experience.
That synthesis,
Yeah.
that feels like the real breakthrough.
It is, because it means the state of your mind, your feelings, your body, they're all just expressions of the same underlying energetic system that's constantly trying to maintain maximum coherence.
And they all affect each other.
Constantly. Your ability to think clearly, for instance, is directly limited by the kinetic friction that's created by unresolved emotional waves. Everything feeds back into everything else.
Okay. Let's dedicate the rest of our time to the real powerhouse of this system, emotion, the kinetic frequency. The sources suggest that emotion operates simultaneously across three interdependent realms.
That's right. The energetic, the psychological, and the physiological.
Let's start with the most abstract of the three, the pure energy flow.
The energetic realm. And to understand this, the linguistic root is so critical. The word emotion comes from the Latin emovere,
Which means?
to move out. And that is the core definition of emotion in the energetic realm. Emotion is not fundamentally a mental state. It is an energetic event. It is the raw kinetic frequency of consciousness. It's the experience of energy in motion.
When we say energy and motion, we're talking about that prosa or key,
Yes.
the movement and amplitude of that vital force. Can you describe what that movement actually looks like energetically?
Well, any wave is characterized by two things: its movement and its amplitude. Think of a high amplitude emotion like acute panic. That causes a massive chaotic surge of ki throughout your entire system. It can lead to physical shaking, mental overload.
And a low amplitude emotion.
A low amplitude, stable emotion like contentment is characterized by a smooth, gentle, rhythmic circulation of breath. So emotion is the kinetic wave. If cognition is the informational signal, emotion is the force that carries that information, moving it from the abstract mind right into the living body.
So the fundamental difference between feeling energized and feeling exhausted in this model is just the flow or stagnation of this kinetic wave.
It's all about flow.
And this flow is defined by its vibrational quality. The sources are very explicit here. We should stop thinking of emotions as good or bad.
We have to move past the moral judgment of feelings and focus on the energetic physics of them. The spectrum is defined simply by how open or how contracted the energy flow is.
Okay, let's break that down. What are the high-frequency emotions?
The high frequency or expansive emotions, things like joy, peace, gratitude, love, they are associated with openness. They increase the ease of circulation of prey, and they amplify coherence in your PCE. When you feel expansive, you are literally vibrating at a higher, more organized frequency. Your field is opening up.
And the opposite must be the low-frequency one.
Exactly. The low frequency or contracted emotions, fear, anger, shame, guilt, these create what we call high energetic density. They manifest as constriction, as blockages in your subtle energetic pathways.
Can you give an example of that? Like shame.
Shame is a perfect example. Shame is not just a psychological feeling of being bad. Energetically, it is a massive, dense contraction of vital force, usually right in the solar plexus or the heart. It physically inhibits flow and cuts you off from your own PCE. It's like an energetic black hole in your core.
Wow. That makes the idea of shifting from a low-frequency state, like deep shame, to a high-frequency state sound almost impossible, because you're trapped by the sheer density of that contracted energy.
It can feel that way.
So how do you break free from that kind of density?
That is where the concept of energy transmutation becomes absolutely vital. If emotion is just energy, it can be refined, it can't be destroyed. So transmutation is the active process. It's an alchemical process of refining that stored, dense, low-frequency vibration into a potent, coherent, high-frequency state.
Can you walk us through a specific example? How does something like raw pain or dense anger become something useful?
Let's take anger. Anger is a massive surge of kinetic force. It's pure power. If it's unprocessed, it festers and becomes bitterness or resentment, and that is a chronic, low-frequency drain on your system.
Right.
Transmutation involves taking that kinetic charge, the sheer force and energy of the anger, and consciously changing its frequency and its direction. For example, the energy of anger at a great injustice can be transmuted into intense, focused determination and action aimed at correcting that injustice.
So the charge, the kinetic force, it remains.
The charge remains, but its vibrational quality shifts from, say, destructive resentment, which is low frequency and contracted, to determined purpose, which is high frequency and expansive.
So you don't get rid of the energy of the emotion. You just refine the container through which it flows, and you change its informational structure.
Exactly. The energy is conserved, but its frequency is elevated. This restores free and constructive flow to the whole system. But it requires conscious awareness. You have to be present enough to feel the raw energy before it locks into its dense, low-frequency meaning.
Okay, let's move to the second dimension, the psychological realm. This is where we take that raw kinetic energy and translate it into something we actually recognize as a feeling.
This is the affective experience. It's the dimension where that raw energy gets translated into a felt sense, and then that feeling is used to color our perception of reality. Emotion here acts as the vital bridge. It's the interface between energy and meaning.
The interface.
The raw key flow gets processed through your interpretive frequency, your cognition, and it emerges as a palpable feeling.
Can you give us a really clear picture of how that interface works in a real-life moment?
Sure. Imagine you're walking down a dark street at night and you hear a sudden rustle in the bushes nearby. That sound is just raw information.
Right.
Cognition immediately assigns meaning. Threat. Emotion then provides the kinetic, energetic response, a surge of what we call fear, the adrenaline dump. The psychological realm is what allows us to experience that energetic surge as fear. And then cognition interprets that fear, I need to run.
So cognition provides the meaning, emotion provides the movement, and together they create a felt vitality and a survival response.
Exactly. They are inseparable in that moment.
So if emotion is managing the flow of pruk, then something like emotion regulation is basically just energy management.
That's absolutely correct. Emotion regulation is central to maintaining your energetic equilibrium. The classic skills of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, they are, in this framework, skills of energy management.
How so?
Well, effective regulation reduces the unnecessary chaotic activation of your stress response. And by doing that, you preserve your vital energetic bandwidth for things that actually matter.
Let's look deeper into some practical strategies for this. The sources mention cognitive reappraisal.
Yes. Cognitive reappraisal is a primary tool for this. It directly targets the interpretive frequency to reduce the negative kinetic load.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say you receive some harsh criticism at work. Your immediate cognitive interpretation might be, I am a failure. This thought instantly triggers the kinetic wave of shame and collapse.
A low-frequency
A
state.
very low frequency state. Reappraisal is the act of consciously revising the meaning. You step back and think, okay, this criticism is actually just feedback I can use to get better. By changing the cognitive input, you immediately reduce the amplitude of that negative kinetic frequency. You allow the energy to flow into constructive channels instead of stagnating in shame.
And what about something like expressive writing?
Expressive writing is about integrating emotional content to discharge the energetic knots that are tied up in rumination. You're literally getting the energy out of your head and onto the page. You release it, allowing the system to stabilize.
And when we succeed at this kind of regulation, the sources say we achieve emotional coherence.
Yes. Emotional coherence is the equilibrium of feeling. It's when your kinetic frequency is rhythmic, it's integrated, and it's aligned with your stabilizing PCE. It's not about the absence of powerful emotions, it's about the ability of your system to process high-amplitude waves without fragmenting.
And that coherence leads to stability and resilience.
Massive stability and resilience. It supports a sustained, high-frequency, energetic state.
Okay, this is fascinating. Now let's anchor all of this in the physical world. The third dimension is the physiological or somatic realm. Emotion isn't just experienced in the mind, it's fundamentally embodied.
It is. Emotion links cognition to somatic energy. This is why a simple thought loop can manifest as a tense jaw or a churning stomach or that sudden heat in your chest when you get angry. The body is the resonant instrument. It physically manifests the internal energetic state.
Let's get specific about the neuroenergetic basis the sources highlight. This is more than just general brain activity, right?
Oh, much more. This is where the energetic model really finds its physical proof. Emotional coherence, or the lack of it, relies on fluctuations in several key physical systems.
Such as?
Well, one is vagal tone. This measures the health of your vagus nerve, which is the essential communication highway between your brain and your gut. It regulates our parasympathetic rest and digest state.
So high vagal tone is good.
High vagal tone is associated with calm, flexibility, and a strong PCE. Low vagal tone means you're stuck in chronic fight-or-flight activation, and that results in constant energetic dissipation.
And what about the physical relationship between the heart and the brain? That's always emphasized in these kinds of materials.
It is paramount. We talk about heart-brain synchronization and electromagnetic coherence. Physically, your heart generates the most powerful rhythmic electrical patterns in your entire body. These patterns literally extend several feet out from you.
An electromagnetic field.
A powerful one. And when we experience expansive emotions like love or gratitude, the heart's rhythm becomes highly ordered. It creates a smooth sine wave pattern. This is what we call high electromagnetic coherence. And this coherent signal feeds back to the brain, stabilizing brainwave activity and improving cognitive function.
Wait, let me get this straight. The state of my feeling literally changes the physical, measurable electrical field of my body. And that change then regulates my mind.
It does.
That completely shifts the whole paradigm of emotional control.
It absolutely does. It means emotional control isn't just a psychological battle you fight in your head. It's a physical electromagnetic regulation challenge. You are literally tuning your body's radio signal.
And when you're stressed,
When you're stressed, the heart rhythm is chaotic and jagged, and this chaotic signal feeds back to the brain, reinforcing confusion, anxiety, and energetic dissonance.
and this leads us directly to the biochemistry of emotion. How do neurotransmitters and hormones map onto these energetic dynamics?
They are the physical agents that regulate the flow. So, for example, serotonin is the chemical correlate of stability. It's associated with groundedness and a stable, smooth energy flow. When your serotonin levels are balanced, your kinetic frequency is manageable.
And dopamine.
Dopamine is the drive. It maps directly to the vector frequency of desire. It increases vitality and energetic drive, fueling your motivation and your impulse toward expansion.
But then there's the antagonist to all this, cortisol.
Cortisol, the stress hormone. Excess cortisol activates your deep survival programming, and that leads to massive energetic constriction. Chronic elevation of cortisol acts like a persistent energetic leak in your system. It locks you in a low-frequency survival mode, and it severely, severely depletes the PCE.
So understanding this tripartite foundation, the energetic, the psychological, and the physiological, that seems to be the key to any truly effective intervention.
It is the ultimate intervention implication. It moves us beyond therapy as just talk therapy. It integrates practices that directly modulate the physical and energetic domains.
Like breath work.
Breathwork directly regulates your vagal tone and your heart coherence. Mindfulness increases your awareness of the kinetic waves as they're happening. Exercise and nutrition modulate those crucial neurochemical pathways. If you want to stabilize your energetic state, you have to engage all three dimensions. Interpret the meaning, which is cognition, manage the affective experience, which is psychology, and regulate the somatic response, which is physiology.
We've established that cognition is the interpretive frequency and emotion is the kinetic frequency. Now let's explore their dance. The sources emphasize they don't interact in a simple cause and effect line,
No, not at all.
but in these powerful, mutually reinforcing feedback loops.
This is the concept of bidirectional resonance. Your cognitive processes are constantly shaping your emotional output, and at the same time, your emotional state is constantly influencing the content and the direction of your thoughts.
So if my thoughts are consistently negative,
They will generate a low-frequency emotion, which in turn makes it more likely you'll have more negative thoughts. This is how we create our persistent reality. It's a loop.
so the quality of our reality is determined by whether this loop is in coherence versus dissonance.
Precisely. Coherence is synergy. When your thought and your emotion are aligned, let's say your rational assessment of a situation is matched by a calm, focused, emotional response, they amplify your PCE. You feel powerful, you feel centered.
And dissonance.
Dissonance is when they misalign. You might have a rational understanding that a threat is minor, but it's coupled with an intense panic response. That creates internal friction. And that friction, that desynchronization, leads to energy dissipation. It results in fatigue and fragmentation.
Let's make this really practical. What do the positive loops where coherence amplifies energy actually look like in daily life?
Okay, a great example is goal visualization and planning. The thought is intentional and structured. I'm going to achieve this complex goal by breaking it down into these 3 manageable steps.
Okay, very clear cognition.
Very clear. This cognition generates the emotion of optimistic focus and a determined calm. And the effect is substantial forward momentum and a significant increase in vitality because your brain is channeling your energy efficiently. The coherent thought provides a clear channel for the kinetic energy to flow through.
Or something even simpler, like the powerful effect of reframing a setback.
That's a classic application of the interpretive frequency. The situation is you failed at something. The thought actively shifts the meaning. This setback provides critical data on where my assumptions were wrong.
So it's not, I'm a failure.
No. The emotion isn't despair, it's focused curiosity and determination. And the effect is that you maintain a stable, high-frequency state. Your system immediately channels energy into adaptive learning instead of sinking into the energetic drain of self-pity. This keeps the PCE healthy and strong.
The power of this model is realizing that the interpretation itself is the energetic trigger. But of course, what about the negative loops? These are the major energy drains that we all experience every day.
The negative loops involve dissonance, and they dissipate energy with frightening speed. The catastrophizing loop is rampant in modern life.
Give us an example.
The situation is a minor organizational issue at work. A missed email, say. The thought spirals completely out of control. If I miss this, what else did I miss? I'm going to get fired and I won't be able to pay my rent and my whole life will fall apart.
And that thought activates.
The low-frequency emotion of intense panic and existential fear. The energy effect is hours of mental rumination, which consumes enormous amounts of glucose and physical energy without producing a single constructive action. It's an energetic black hole.
And the resentment replay loop, that inability to let go of past conflicts, that seems like the perfect definition of stuck low-frequency energy.
It is the definition of energetic stagnation. The situation is just remembering an argument you had 5 years ago, but the thought is rigid and unforgiving. They wronged me, they never apologized, and they're terrible people.
And that keeps the emotion alive.
It keeps the high amplitude, low frequency emotion of anger and bitterness on a constant simmer. And the energy effect is chronic physiological arousal, the low-level cortisol release, the muscle tension, the elevated blood pressure, all consuming energy for a threat that doesn't even exist anymore. You're perpetually consuming energy to fight a memory.
So if these loops are so powerfully self-reinforcing, how do we intentionally disrupt them? The sources emphasize awareness, flexibility, and practice.
We have to intentionally intervene. And we can do that first in the cognitive realm and then in the somatic realm. Cognitive reappraisal in real time is the application of the interpretive frequency to intercept the loop as it's happening.
Let's use an example. Say you're triggered by a perceived slight from a colleague. How would you use reappraisal in that moment?
Okay. The initial thought is, how dare they? They're trying to sabotage me. And that immediately generates the energy of rage and defensiveness. Awareness allows you to pause the loop for just a second.
And in that pause,
the reappraisal shifts the perspective. I'll consider the possibility that they're just stressed or they misunderstood the situation. Maybe this doesn't actually concern me at all. This instantly redirects the energy.
and the energy effect of that redirection.
Instead of spiraling down into resentment, which is a huge drain, the energy is freed up. It can be used for improvement, for empathy, or simply for moving on. You transform the kinetic charge on the spot.
But what about when the kinetic charge is already too high? When anxiety hits so hard that conscious thought is impossible, you have to stabilize the body first.
Yes, that's where somatic stabilization comes in.
Explain that.
When you have an anxiety spike, the logical part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, is essentially offline. Your limbic system is in complete control. Trying to use rational thought at that point will only increase your frustration.
So what do you do?
Somatic grounding. You shift your focus entirely to the physiological dimension. You engage your senses. You feel your feet on the floor. You listen for 5 distinct sounds in the room. You consciously slow down your out-breath to activate your vagus nerve. The goal is just to stabilize the physical system.
And the energy effect of that.
It's immediate. Your nervous system dials down the physiological arousal. This allows the trapped kinetic energy to be released and integrated, freeing up your attention for rest or planning once the spike subsides. You stop the acute energetic leak.
This really highlights that self-mastery is always a multidimensional approach. You use the cognitive dimension to manage meaning and the somatic dimension to manage the flow.
Absolutely. There are 2 different entry points for energy regulation. You regulate the wave, which is somatic, and you regulate the meaning, which is cognitive, to keep your PCE coherent and strong.
Okay, let's pivot now to what happens when the interpretive system itself fails. When cognition, the interpretive frequency, becomes dysfunctional, it introduces chaos into the kinetic flow. It leads directly to energetic friction.
Right. Cognition's role is structural. It translates raw experience into coherent, meaningful forms. Our beliefs, our frameworks, our concepts, it's the map maker. But the greatest source of dysfunction is when we have excessive identification with our cognitive constructs.
We mistake the map for the territory.
We mistake our map for the territory. And that leads to rigidity. When the mind holds its models too tightly, it resists new informational frequencies, and that prevents adaptation and growth.
So fluid cognition is an openness to new information, allowing for the continuous reorganization of meaning, whereas rigid cognition is a flat-out refusal to update the map, even when the terrain has completely changed.
Exactly. Rigidity blocks the flow of new adaptive frequencies, and this lack of fluidity is what causes the energetic conflict that we know as dissonance.
Let's clearly distinguish the underlying energetic state of that conflict from the psychological experience of it. First, what is energetic dissonance?
Energetic dissonance is the deep, fundamental dysfunction. It is the desynchronization of your cognitive, emotional, and somatic frequencies. It's when the informational frequencies of your thoughts clash with the kinetic frequencies of your emotions and the somatic frequencies of your body state.
So it's internal turbulence.
It's turbulence within the PCE. Imagine 3 tuning forks all trying to vibrate together, but they're slightly out of sync. The result is a painful, unstable, jarring noise that's energetic dissonance.
And the internal experience of that energetic instability, that's what we call cognitive dissonance.
Correct. Cognitive dissonance is the psychological manifestation of that state. It's the internal vibrational conflict that arises when you have contradictory beliefs or experiences coexisting without any resolution.
Like believing I am a moral person, but consistently engaging in immoral behavior.
That's the classic example, the 2 vibrational patterns, the belief and the action clash. And that clash creates tremendous energetic friction.
And this tension is incredibly uncomfortable. But the sources suggest that this very tension is actually functional. It's an engine for growth.
It is the ultimate energetic alarm bell. The mind naturally seeks to restore vibrational harmony. It wants to resolve the dissonance. It can do this in a few ways. By justifying the behavior, which is repression. By changing the behavior, which is action. Or by radically adjusting the beliefs to align with a higher truth. This tension is the pressure that catalyzes transformation. It forces the system to either collapse under the pressure or to reconfigure itself into a higher state of coherence.
But how do we know the difference between helpful tension that forces growth and just damaging energetic drain that leads to burnout?
That's the critical distinction. Helpful tension feels acute, it feels focused, and it feels purposeful. It's the energy required to bridge a gap, like the tension in a muscle when it's performing a heavy lift. It quickly leads to a clear action or resolution, which then releases the energy into a new coherent state.
And damaging drain.
Damaging drain, conversely, is chronic. It's diffuse, it's recursive, it's that anger replay loop we talked about, or endless rumination. It consumes energy without any resolution, and it actively lowers your PCE.
So if the tension leads to insight and then action within a reasonable time frame, it's constructive pressure?
Yes. But if it just leads to fatigue and paralysis, it's destructive dissonance.
Okay, let's detail the 2 main ways the interpretive frequency breaks down, which fuel this destructive dissonance. The first is cognitive rigidity.
Cognitive rigidity is a fixation. Psychologically, it manifests as these inflexible thought patterns, as dogmatism, as confirmation bias. The individual will fiercely defend their old frameworks even when they're contradicted by overwhelming new information.
And what's happening energetically there?
Energetically, this is defined as low-frequency entrenchment. The consciousness is fixed within these limited, low vibrational bandwidths. The person has an inability to resonate with new frequencies of truth.
I can't hear it.
They literally cannot process the frequency of your information. And that's why it's so draining to argue with someone who's rigidly entrenched. Their energy is being used to maintain the boundary of their rigid belief structure, which is exhausting.
So confirmation bias isn't just a mental error. It's an energetic refusal to engage with dissonant but necessary frequencies.
Exactly. And the second mode, cognitive fragmentation, is the opposite extreme.
What does that look like?
Cognitive fragmentation is disorganization. Psychologically, it appears as inconsistency, pervasive self-doubt, dissociation, or that obsessive rumination that lacks any integrative coherence. The mind is just generating thoughts in too many conflicting directions at once.
That energetically.
Energetically, this is frequency incoherence. The oscillatory patterns of consciousness lose synchronization. So instead of a single powerful wave, the mental field is vibrating in all these conflicting directions and they're canceling each other out. This generates massive energetic dissipation and extreme fatigue because the system is constantly fighting its own internal signals.
It sounds like the choice is between being a rigid, stuck antenna or a broken, incoherent one. Both lead to energetic inefficiency.
And both severely deplete the PC, leading right back to fatigue and fragmentation. The pathway to mastery requires recognizing these 2 failure modes and cultivating the cognitive flexibility to avoid both. You need structure to fight fragmentation, but you also need permeability to fight rigidity.
We've built a really robust model of cognition and emotion within the PCE field. Now let's bring in the 2 remaining dimensions, memory and desire, to complete the full picture of the energetic nexus and understand the path to self-mastery.
Right. Let's start with memory, the stabilizing frequency. It acts as this vast reservoir of energetic imprints. Every single memory is a stored chart, a combination of informational structure and kinetic energy.
And how does that reservoir affect our ability to generate energy in the present moment?
It dictates it. Positive emotional memories, the ones associated with joy or achievement or love, they act as reservoirs of available vitality. They're high-frequency imprints that we can actually access for a boost of energy.
And the opposite.
Conversely, unresolved traumatic or painful memories act as energetic blockages. They are like knots of dense, low-frequency charge, and they are constantly restricting the flow of your vital force, your prep.
And the sources really highlight the connection between memory, the stories we tell, and our identity.
Profoundly so. Episodic memory profoundly influences our identity construction through the stories we tell ourselves, our self-narratives. And these narratives are not passive records. They are active, energetic frameworks.
So if my self-narrative is, I am someone who always fails,
Then that narrative reinforces a low-frequency kinetic pattern of shame and withdrawal, and it constrains your growth. But if the narrative is, I am a resilient learner, it generates optimism and determination.
so the path to transformation requires actively modifying that stabilizing frequency.
Yes. The transformation implication here is critical. Consciously reframing these narratives allows you to actively reclaim energy that was previously bound up in those painful, unconscious loops. By changing the meaning attached to the energetic imprint, you change the frequency of the imprint itself.
Can you give us a concrete example of that narrative reframing in action?
Absolutely. Consider a person whose memory is dominated by a painful professional betrayal. The original narrative is, I was naive and weak. I will always be vulnerable to betrayal. This memory acts as a constant energetic drain, generating anxiety and defensiveness.
So how do you reframe that?
Reframing starts with acknowledging the pain, that's the kinetic release, but then changing the interpretation, which is the cognitive shift. The new narrative becomes, that betrayal was a powerful, if painful, lesson in boundary setting and discernment. I am now stronger and more aware because of it.
So the energetic content, the pain, is transmuted.
It's transmuted from shame and victimhood, which is low frequency, into wisdom and discernment, which is high frequency. The energy is released back to the PCE, and the individual's entire life trajectory can be reshaped.
Okay, let's shift from the past to the future. Desire, the engine that points the system forward.
Desire is the most elemental force. It is the directional motion of your life force. It channels all of our kinetic energy into action. And the quality of our desire determines whether that channel leads to sustained energy or to burnout.
This is where alignment becomes key. How do intrinsic and misaligned desires differ energetically?
You can think of it using an engine metaphor. Intrinsic desires are aligned with your core values and your purpose. They are like a clean, high-octane fuel for your system. They foster creativity, fulfillment, and coherence, resulting in a powerful, smooth energy flow. That's alignment.
And misaligned desires.
Misaligned desires, conversely, are extrinsic. They're about seeking external validation, money for its own sake, status to cover up insecurity. This is like pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. It leads to chronic dissatisfaction and energetic burnout because it creates friction with your PCE. You're using massive amounts of energy, but the direction conflicts with your true nature, so you're just dissipating your vital force.
What's the ultimate energetic consequence of unmanaged desire?
Unfulfilled desires create massive energetic tension and a chronic drain. They keep the energetic system in a continuous state of seeking and lack, which is completely unsustainable.
So the work isn't about getting what you want.
Often, no, it's about transmuting the low-frequency energy of craving into creative aspiration. By shifting from, I must have this object to feel whole, to, I aspire to contribute this unique gift, the desire transforms from a root of bondage into a pure, potent seed of transcendence, and that enhances energy flow and promotes coherence.
So we've established the governing web. Cognition as structure, emotion as movement, memory as the archive, desire as the vector, all organized by the PCE, the unifying coherence. What is the practical result of integrating these 5 complex dimensions?
The goal of integration is what we can call self-mastery. And this is achieved when all 5 of these components align seamlessly with an individual's core values and unique purpose. When that happens, you create a robust, coherent energy flow.
You stop fighting yourself.
You stop fighting yourself and you start using the full capacity of your system.
So how does this framework define transformation then in this integrated context?
Transformation defined is the intentional, active process of cultivating awareness of your own energetic imbalances. It's sensing where your system is rigid with a fixated thought or where it's fragmenting with chaotic emotion.
And then using practices to correct it.
Exactly. It requires using intentional practices, mindfulness to raise awareness, breath work to stabilize the kinetic flow, visualization to refine the vector of your desire, and somatic practices to integrate memory imprints, all to restore balance and high-frequency coherence. Transformation is the restoration of energetic order in the face of chaos. It's the ultimate upgrade of your personal operating system.
It really seems like the core insight here is that self-mastery is fundamentally about becoming a master conductor of your own inner energetic orchestra.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's the shift from just reacting to external stimuli to intentionally regulating your own internal frequencies. When you achieve that, your inner world becomes stable, and your actions in the outer world become effortless and incredibly effective.
This deep dive has just profoundly detailed the architecture of human vitality. We begin with that foundational premise that we are, at our core, energetic informational systems organized by the personal core energy, the PCE.
And we really zeroed in on the tripartite nature of emotion, seeing it not just as a feeling, but as the kinetic frequency operating across three essential and interconnected realms. The raw, energetic realm of flow and vibration.
The psychological realm of affect and meaning, and the physiological realm of neurochemistry and somatic embodiment.
The ultimate lesson here seems to be that our mental landscape is constantly shaping and being shaped by our energetic state. Coherence among our thought, our feeling, and our energy is presented as the essential pathway to self-mastery and genuine transformation.
You are actively regulating flow every single time you choose an interpretation or consciously regulate your breath.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to carry forward. If every thought you have is a frequency and every feeling is a kinetic wave, then transformation is not really about what you feel or think, but about the frequency at which you are vibrating.
So the question becomes, what subtle frequency is your daily routine reinforcing in your energetic field?
An essential question to ponder.
It is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the energetic nexus.
Always a pleasure to explore these deeper structures of consciousness with you.
For more information, please contact Sachin J. Karnik at the email address provided in the description box. We'll see you next time.